Hey there guys, welcome back to AFC Game by Game. Today I'm going to be taking a look at quite a lot of Arsenal players that could be looking to leave the club in the summer after having underperformed this season. A few of those names have been in the club for quite some time. I definitely think this is something that's worth discussing because it has come into question more and more this season as to what players we will be looking to ship off. Some rather surprising names that I'll be mentioning throughout this video, but I do hope you enjoy it. A couple of names that I won't be mentioning first and foremost are Thomas Rosicky, Mathieu Flamini and Mikel Arteta, primarily because we know those three are going to be leaving in the summer due to their age getting on a bit, but they've been great servants to the club. I won't be mentioning them throughout this video like I say, but without further ado, let's get into the video. First up, I've gone with Mertesacker, the Arsenal vice-captain, a player that this season has been exploited for pace massively at times. It's always been a problem for his Arsenal career, but his positional awareness, his reading of the game has always been exceptional, which is why he hasn't been exploited, as I think so many people predicted he would be when he first joined the club. But this season, as he's entering his early 30s, he really is looking a lot more vulnerable at times. Dele Alli really exposed him in that game at White Hart Lane not too long ago, playing that back pass into Harry Kane, who then went on to score that wonder goal, which at the time did cost us 2 vital points. So for me, Mertesacker is a player that, with him getting on, I don't know how much more valuable he can be to the Arsenal Football Club, but I do think his leadership skills, his presence within the dressing room is certainly valued, especially with 1 year left on his contract. I can't see Arsenal selling him in the summer, especially as we would get such a little fee for him. The one thing I don't want to see, though, is for us to give the armband to him when Mikel Arteta inevitably leaves the club. I'd like to see him remain on as, a kind of player-coach sort of guy, not someone that's going to start in the first team, maybe start in the FA Cup for us, the odd Champions League appearance, possibly playing the League Cup, but not someone that I want starting week in, week out. It's evident that Gabriel Palestra has taken his centre-back place alongside Laurent Koscielny. So for me, Mertesacker is someone I would keep, but I wouldn't give him the captain's armband. Next up is a player that has come under the most controversy this season, given the fact that he's in his testimonial year and we're still talking about him having potential. For me, the most frustrating player that I've ever seen at Arsenal Football Club, it has to be Theo Walcott. Shows glimpses of brilliance at times. This season, Manchester United at home, I'll never forget that slide tackle he put in on Bastian Schweinsteiger. I can't help but feel if he had the commitment of Alexis Sanchez, he'd be such a valuable asset to Arsenal Football Club. But the fact of the matter is, he spends most of his time on the bench. He's earning 140 grand a week. Alex Iwobi is ahead of him now in the pecking order, and he's quite frankly lazy at times. I don't see that kind of dying, burning passion within him that someone like Iwobi shows when he goes out every time on the pitch. So for me, Walcott is a player that I would be very tempted to cash in on. And the fact that we could be giving him a testimonial, we're giving him the captain's armband at times. He's done nothing to merit that. In that 2012-13 season, I really did think it was, the time that we were actually seeing the real Theo Walcott, a player that had finally fulfilled his potential and was going to kick on from that point. I remember he got about 25 to 30 goals that season, was absolutely sublime, and started the following season, 2013-14, in similar fashion, playing in a striking role from time to time, playing some really good football. But then he got his injury in the game against Tottenham Hotspur at home and we won 2-0 in the Cup. And from that point, has never really looked the same player. He has showed glimpses of brilliance, certainly not a player that is meriting 140 grand a week. And if we were to cash in on him, if we could get 30 to 35 million for him, which would be a big push, but I reckon Liverpool would certainly pay it, I would be very tempted to cash in on him. Next up, a player that is looking more and more like Theo Walcott of the current age. It is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I feel so sorry for the guy in terms of injuries. He has so much potential to offer Arsenal Football Club, but let's not forget he's in his early 20s now. He's not the same player that we signed a couple of years. Well, I say a couple of years ago. It was about 5 years ago since we signed Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain as an 18-year-old. I remember I think he got a goal against Shrewsbury Town in the League Cup, and he was playing some fantastic football from that point. And he really did look like a talent that we could embrace at Arsenal Football Club. Had a really exciting first season, carried that into the next term, but then injuries have dogged him season after season after season. This was the season for him. I honestly feel if he'd have stayed fit, if he'd have had some form to his name, then he would have been a big player for Arsenal Football Club. And he started this season really well, had a really good pre-season, had a really good game against Chelsea in the Community Shield, and he started on the opening day of the season against West Ham United, which for me says that Wenger had him in his plans to be a regular first-choice player for Arsenal. He's got it all in his locker, he's so versatile, but the thing is, I think he needs to pin down a spot in this Arsenal team. For me, he plays on the right-hand side, which is unfortunately being taken over by Alexis Sanchez at the current moment, and he's playing some really good football there. And with Chamberlain injured, he's not going to be getting back into the team anytime soon. So for him to work his way back into the starting 11 is going to be a mammoth task. I can't see him playing in that central midfield role. For me, he's a wing player. He's got loads of pace, loads of energy, loads of strength. He needs to nail down a position and stick to it. Otherwise, if we keep moving him about the pitch, he's never going to be that player that we want him to be. I would give him 1 more year at Arsenal Football Club, and then if he doesn't fulfil his potential next season, then I'd be very tempted to offload him. Next up is a player that a couple of years ago I'd never ever have thought that I'd be talking about getting rid of him, but it is Aaron Ramsey, the Welsh international. And this season, I said Walcott was one of our more frustrating players, but for me, Ramsey is a constant source of frustration. I'm not denying that he's a brilliant player, because at times he has shown his absolute class. That game against Aston Villa away from home, that goal he scored where he won the ball, tracked the whole length of the pitch, then put it in the back of the net from Mesut Ozil's assist. Wonderful performance there, but it was away from home against Aston Villa. Doesn't really speak volumes. I would like to think that he's a player that can cement a place in this Arsenal team, but for me, the future midfield pivot has to be Jack Wilshere and Francis Coquelin, and it is a bit of a shame that Ramsey does struggle to get some kind of form going in this Arsenal side. He has predominantly played on the right-hand side for us this season, but when he did have his chance in central midfield, he was awful alongside not only Mathieu Debuchy, but wasn't a lot better when he played alongside Francis Coquelin. For me, he needs someone like Mikel Arteta playing alongside him, not a defensive-minded player, someone that's going to play the ball out from the back, play it forward, be very accurate with his passes, and Ramsey can play off him. Unfortunately, he doesn't have that in Francis Coquelin. Coquelin's more of a nitty-gritty kind of player that gets stuck in, gets the business done. Ramsey, on the other hand, needs someone a bit more level-headed with a bit more tempo alongside him. But for me, Coquelin works a lot better in our system. Jack Wilshere will work better in our system. And Ramsey really is going to struggle to get in this Arsenal team. If Barcelona came in with an offer of about 45 million for him, I would snap their hands off for it. Next up is a player that I don't really want to be talking about leaving the club, but I think it's certainly worth discussing as he is entering his early 30s now. He has had quite a big injury this season. You all know who I'm going to say. It is Santi Cazorla. And it's been said that he's been linked with China with a move of about 25 to 30 million pounds. And for a player that's approaching 32, it's a very decent offer if that is to be believed. He's a player that I think is invaluable to Arsenal Football Club. The way he performs alongside Francis Coquelin, for me, as I previously mentioned, Jack Wilshere and Coquelin is the future midfield pivot of Arsenal Football Club. But Cazorla, at least for next season, can provide to be a sturdy midfield option and a sublime midfield option. That I do think, given that he's had such a long layoff this season, he'll still have bags of energy for next campaign. I do hope these injuries aren't a recurring thing for him, because he is, like I say, invaluable to our midfield. And we'll see how he does next season, but I wouldn't be too tempted to offload him this season. I mean, what's 25 million to us? We can certainly afford to keep Santi Cazorla at Arsenal Football Club. Up next, we've got Kieran Gibbs, and he's a player that I've got so much time for. I really, really admire Kieran Gibbs, and I do feel bad for him having to sit behind Nacho Monreal in the pecking order, because Gibbs has not really done anything wrong. He's still a class fullback in my eyes, and if we didn't have Nacho Monreal at the club and Kieran Gibbs was playing every single game this season in what is one of his very rare injury-free campaigns, he would be going to the Euros as England's first-choice fullback, which is a real shame, because he's got so much to offer. He's in his mid-20s now. He's in the peak of his career. I do think whenever he's played for us this season, he has been absolutely superb. In that brief spell that he had recently playing for us, played some really good football at White Hart Lane away, was one of our better players. He's a really exciting talent at Arsenal Football Club, and given that he's got the number 3 shot, I do think he's a long-term option for us. Well, I say long-term, for the next 5 years or so, given that he is in his mid-20s now. When Monreal departs, and I do think you will see from the start of next season, Gibbs will be introduced into the team that little bit more. We have got a sublime fullback option in him. Next up, another fullback, Mathieu Debuchy, and I really have grown to dislike the guy, considering how he's gone about his business this season. He's currently on loan at Bordeaux, and I wouldn't expect him to come back to Arsenal Football Club anytime soon. I fully expect this guy to be departing the club just for a mere fee of about 3 to 5 million quid in the summer, and I don't really want to see him play for Arsenal again, given the way he's conducted himself this season, in which he's tried to force his way out of the club. It does annoy me a bit that he's criticising Arsene Wenger, saying that he hasn't had his chance in and around the starting 11. That's absolute garbage. He started the game against West Ham United on the opening day of the season. He's had many a chance in the Champions League, played away from home in the League Cup at White Hart Lane. For me, he's a player that has had a whole array of chances this season, but simply hasn't stepped up to the plate, hasn't taken them, and has been awful since his recurrent injuries. So for me, he's a player that I'd definitely be cashing in on. Don't want to see him play for Arsenal again, and it is a bit of a shame really that he's leaving the club in such a negative manner, because when he did first come, I never thought he was an amazing player. I thought he was very, very average, to be honest with you, when we bought him from Newcastle for about 10 million quid. But he did start the season quite well when we first got him in the 2014-15 campaign, playing in that right back role, linking up well with Alexis Sanchez. Looked very promising on the opening day against Crystal Palace. Looked very good against Besiktas when we were playing them at the time. So it is a shame that he's leaving the club in such a negative light. But for me, given the way he's conducted himself, hasn't got a future at Arsenal Football Club. Callum Chambers is up next, and it's a difficult one with Chambers because he's got so much potential to unearth. He is only 21, but maybe a loan move would do him good. Every time he's played for us this season, I actually think he's been very, very promising. I remember Bournemouth at home in the 2-0 win. He played in that central defensive midfield role. He played at centre half a couple of times. Against Leicester at home, I thought he was exceptional in that game when we beat them 2-1. And at times really has a very composed, a very elegant centre half when playing alongside someone a bit more experienced, such as Laurent Koscielny or Per Mertesacker. I actually think Koscielny and Chambers is a very good partnership for the next couple of years if it is potentially going to arise, which I don't think it will. He also works very well alongside Mertesacker, like I say. Alongside Gabriel, given the communication issues, that's not something that works particularly well. We saw that against Liverpool at home. Amazed we didn't concede about 5 goals in that game. But I do think he's got a lot to offer Arsenal Football Club. But with Gabriel coming into the frame of things a little bit more, starting alongside Koscielny, I think that's going to be our centre-back partnership for next season. I also think we will be looking to bring in a centre-half over the summer. So I would be very, very surprised if Chambers didn't look for a loan move or something for the next coming season. And finally, Joel Campbell. I do feel really, really, really sorry for the guy. Given that every time he's played for us this season, he's been superb. It just seems to be the case of Wenger doesn't particularly like him and doesn't think he works in this Arsenal system, which I would completely disagree with. He does hog the ball that little bit, but that's what I like about him. He's a very exciting player, very gifted player, quite a young player as well. I believe he's only 24 years old, so does have his best years ahead of him, and he's a player that could be very valuable to Arsenal Football Club. But I feel if a bid of about 10 to 15 million pounds comes in for him over the summer, we will be looking to offload him, which is a shame. But with the likes of Alexis Sanchez, Alex Iwobi in front of him now in the pecking order, Joel Campbell sadly doesn't have much of a future at Arsenal Football Club. Of course, there are a few players that you might be wondering why I haven't mentioned throughout this video, Jack Wilshere being one of them. But for me, he's a player that is never going to leave Arsenal Football Club anytime soon. I doubt we'd accept a bid for about 40 million from Manchester City if that were ever to materialise. He's got such a exciting, prestigious future with him at Arsenal Football Club. I just really hope these injuries that he continues to get subside at some point. He does have the potential to be Mr. Arsenal, a player that I never ever think Arsenal are going to sell. It's an irrelevant, it's a redundant argument in my opinion whether we'd keep or sell Jack Wilshere, because he is going to stay at Arsenal Football Club. Another player you could mention is Carl Jenkinson. For me, he's going to be competing with Hector Bellerin at the end of the start of next season, should I say, with Mathieu Debuchy looking to leave the club. That'll certainly be an exciting and fiery first choice right back spot. But anyway, guys, get your thoughts on this in the comments box below. Please do let me know any players that I've missed out in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on this video in general. Please do drop a like on the video if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe to AFC Game by Game, and as always, I'll be speaking to you very, very soon.